tens of thousands of people have now and are now attending the funeral for Hersh Goldberg Polin, one of 6 hostages who were killed by Hamas in Gaza. And this is a live look, as you can see. Many people attending that funeral right there. This also comes as we are learning that President Biden and Vice President Harris are meeting in the White House Situation Room today, along with the U.S. hostage deal negotiating team, after the murder of 6 hostages, including American citizen Hersh Goldberg Polin, by Hamas on Saturday. The White House said the focus of the meeting is to discuss efforts to drive toward a deal that secures the release of the remaining hostages. Now, the meeting is closed to the press. This comes after hundreds of thousands of Israelis demonstrated in the streets of Tel Aviv to protest after the 6 hostages were found dead in Gaza. Many blaming Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, saying they could have been returned alive in a deal with Hamas to end the nearly 11-month-old war. Many others, though, support Netanyahu's strategy of maintaining military pressure on Hamas, saying this will eventually force Hamas to give in to Israeli demands and ultimately eliminate the terrorist organization. Israel said the 6 hostages found dead in Gaza were killed by Hamas shortly before Israeli forces arrived in the tunnel where they were being held. 3 of them were reportedly scheduled to be released in the first phase of a ceasefire proposal discussed in July. The Israeli Health Ministry said autopsies had determined the hostages were shot at close range and died on Thursday or Friday. Netanyahu blamed Hamas, saying, quote, "Whoever murders hostages doesn't want a deal." To speak more on this, I do want to bring in Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, who is the former Jerusalem deputy mayor. And Fleur, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephanie.
And this is truly an emotional day for so many individuals, as thousands are attending the funeral for Hersh Goldberg Polin. And you were sharing with me that you actually knew him.
Yes, we're family friends. I know his parents very well. His daughter is best friends with my daughter. And I know Hersh as an incredible kid, sensitive kid, was a vegetarian from a very young age. I was at his bar mitzvah, which is, of course, ceremony when you're 13 years old and you're a boy. And we're all devastated. We live in the same neighborhood. Everybody, I don't think just the neighborhood, or I don't think just the country, but the whole world is grieving, because Hersh's parents became a symbol of hope. They became the voice of the voiceless who were trapped in tunnels. They went everywhere around the world. They met from the Pope to presidents to everywhere. And we really did believe, as his incredible mother, Rachel Goldberg, said just now in her eulogy of her son, we really did believe he was going to be coming home.
Incredibly powerful words by the mother, and we also were hearing from the father, a number of other individuals speaking from their heart, from their soul. This comes as President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are meeting in the Situation Room to discuss a ceasefire deal. You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, we all want a ceasefire. Nobody wants continuation of this conflict, but all the hostages have to come home. And Israel has to be in a position that it's not attacked or massacred again. That's the bottom line. There are 2 aims to this war. And so, of course, some people in Israel argue that they could do more, and absolutely they could do more. I always say that Security Cabinet should be speaking like it's their children down in those tunnels, not other people's children, but their own children. But at the same time, we know this from Secretary of State Antony Blinken, that it's been Hamas who've been intransigent for the last 5-6 times. The deals have been offered to them. So really, we have to keep pushing Hamas and their interlocutors to pressure them into a deal. And the United States has incredible leverage. You have a military base in Qatar. They just signed the lease for the continuation of that military base. Now, Qatar is not just hosting Hamas leaders, it's funding Hamas. And it's also the owner of the biggest media propagator of the delegitimization of Israel that exists in the world, which is Al Jazeera TV. And the US could absolutely use the power of the fact that they have a military base in Qatar to press the buttons. Also, the United States is releasing frozen funds of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Why? We know that they fund Hamas. We know they fund the Houthis who kill Americans. We know they fund Hezbollah in Lebanon who kill Americans. Why has any money been unblocked to the Islamic Republic of Iran? These are the levers that need to be pushed and not just pressurizing the Israeli government to capitulate. I am really in favor of Israel doing anything it can to return the hostages, but there are much bigger evil players in place that can be also pressurized by the United States.
And what are your thoughts on the growing fractures within Israel itself? As we saw yesterday, and we brought it to our viewers live here on Live Now from Fox, tens of thousands of demonstrators taking to the streets in Tel Aviv to protest how Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is handling this ongoing war. Many others also support his strategy when it comes to working to eliminate Hamas. But what can you share with us about that?
You know, people are angry, people are hurting. There's so many victims of this terrible conflict that we didn't start, that we didn't want. So it's understandable that people are angry at their own leaders for what's happened and how it's been handled. I think it's a very natural reaction. And I understand that. I understand that desperation for a result, and that the focus of that desperation is people's own governments. I really do understand it. But I think that what's really important right now is to remain united in the struggle against the real enemy, which is the terrorist group of Hamas and its funders and its sponsors, which is the Islamic Republic of Iran. We can't forget that this is a part of a much bigger conflict, which is a civilizational conflict, and that is Islamic fundamentalism against the free world. Hamas against Israel is a simple expression of a much bigger conflict. And everybody has to zoom out for a second and understand what's really going on, because it really doesn't take too much analysis to connect all of the major conflicts around the world with Islamic fundamentalism. And that is the real enemy. And who's telling us? Moderate Sunni states like Saudi Arabia, like the UAE. These states have kicked out their own Islamic fundamentalists and are telling the world, you don't know what you've got on your hands. You have to deal with this. We can't brush it under the carpet anymore, hoping it's going away, or not even talking about it for some false political correctness. This is not about political correctness. This is about a civilizational struggle. We are in the moments that the world was in the 1930s with Nazi Germany, when a lot of people excused Nazi Germany and Hitler and made many excuses for them. This is where we're at right now. And the whole world has to understand that we share that enemy, and that what's going on with Hamas, what's going on with this horrible, terrible terrorist group that would kidnap babies, that would behead babies, that would rape women and men in a music festival of peaceful, loving people and steal hundreds of them onto their tunnels, which is what they've done with all of the aid the world has given them. They built tunnels in order to propagate terror. They don't build tunnels under schools. They build schools on top of tunnels, and they build hospitals on top of tunnels. And their entire strategy is not about sharing the land. It's not about self-determination. It's about the destruction of Israel as the little Satan on the way to the destruction of America, the big Satan. That is the ideology that we're all facing with. And everybody has to wake up to understand that this is not just Israel's war. It is the entire global community's war against fundamentalism.
Fleur, you were also talking about the Houthis, and I did want to ask you about the very latest in that. You're taking a look at some video there from a previous Houthi attack, but suspected attacks by Yemen's Houthi rebels targeted 2 ships in the Red Sea on Monday, near where crews hope to salvage a tanker loaded with oil. Really still ablaze after another assault by the group. According to authorities, the attacks are believed to be the latest in the Iranian-backed rebels campaign that has disrupted a $1 trillion in goods that pass through the Red Sea each year over the Israel-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip, as well as halted some aid shipments to Sudan and Yemen. Meanwhile, the efforts to salvage this still burning ship seek to head off the potential disaster posed by its cargo of 1 million barrels of crude oil. In Monday's first assault, 2 projectiles hit the vessel and a third explosion occurred near the ship. The British military's United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operation Center sharing that. So I did want to ask you, in regards to this, what can you share with us about the latest suspected attacks by the Houthi rebels?
Unfortunately, the attack by the Houthis is it's not new. They've been attacking way before October 7th. They were involved in a cruel war way before October 7th. They have been cruel to their own population. They are the pinnacle of Islamic fundamentalism backed by Iran. They've killed American servicemen and women. This is not new. This is a continuation of the same struggle. And my difficulty here is understanding why the world is not connecting the dots. That's my difficulty.
And when you say not connecting the dots, can you connect the dots for us? What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that we have a fundamentalist Islamic regime in Iran, a Shia regime in Iran that is searching for Shia Islamist homogeny in the Middle East as the beginning of a big global caliphate movement. But let's say their aim right now is the Middle East, and they are the sponsors of Hezbollah, which has attacked Israel from the north from the 8th of October, Hamas, which attacked Israel from the south on the 7th of October, the Houthis, who have been involved in their own civil war and in propagating Islamic fundamentalism. I've met many refugees from Yemen who had to leave because they were persecuted for being gay or for not agreeing with the government or for speaking out. This is the same story again and again and again. And this is what I'm saying by the world not connecting the dots. When we see terrorism in European countries, when we see a Taylor Swift concert being canceled because of ISIS, this is the same thing. This is ISIS ideology, which the world has still not understood is a big connected network of Islamist states as well as Islamic groups in different states, all funded by the Islamic Republic of Iran. And what happens in the United States? They unblock millions and billions of dollars for the Iranians to then continue propagating the terrorism. This is what I mean by the world is not yet connecting the dots.
Fleur, before we let you go, is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers?
I just want to say that whoever has watched the live funeral, Rachel and John, are really an example of loving parents who didn't leave any stone unturned everywhere in order to release their son. They humanized the struggle for getting out the hostages. And I really just pray and hope that this is not in vain and that this will serve to push something to get them all released and brought home.
Fleur, as always, we do appreciate you joining us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks, Stephanie.